It was a Tuesday. Not the kind of day you expect your world to fall apart. I had just wrapped up a site inspection early, figured I'd surprise Brooke, maybe grab lunch together like we used to back when things were simple. Her car was in the driveway, which felt like a good sign until I got closer. That's when I saw it. A man's jacket tossed on the passenger seat of her car. Not mine. Not anyone I recognized. Tan suede, newer, stylish. Too stylish for any of her brothers or coworkers. My chest tightened, but I told myself there could be an explanation. There always is until there isn't. As I walked up the front steps, I heard it. Laughter. Hers loud, carefree, the way she used to laugh with me. Then a man's voice, low and warm, responded. The kind of tone you don't use with a friend's wife unless you're past a certain line. I rang the doorbell. On instinct. I didn't want to barge in, not yet. I wanted to give her one last chance to prove my gut wrong. Everything went quiet inside. I heard hurried footsteps and a chair scrape against the tile. Then the door creaked open. Brooke stood there with a look I hadn't seen in a long time, startled, like someone had just flipped the lights on in a dark room. She recovered fast, too fast. "Jason," she said, with that tight smile she used when we had guests over and were in the middle of a fight. "You're home early." I nodded. I didn't say anything about the jacket. Or the cologne that hung in the air, not mine, too sharp, too musky. "Not me." "Who's here?" I asked quietly, though I already knew. She hesitated. "Oh, it's just Landon, he's an old friend from yoga. You've heard me mention him, right?" I hadn't. She said it casually like it was nothing. But her eyes gave her away. She was searching my face, trying to read how much I knew. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask to come in. I just stood there, staring at the life I had built and the stranger standing in front of me wearing my wife's skin. And then I walked away. Not just from the doorstep or the house. I walked away from us. Looking back, I can't pretend there weren't signs. There were signs all over the place, red flags waving like they were trying to warn me of the storm ahead. But I didn't want to see them. Not really. Not when it was Brooke. Not when it was us. You don't go into a marriage expecting it to end in betrayal. You go in believing you'll fight through the hard parts. That the person beside you wants to fight for it too. The first crack showed up on a Wednesday night. We had just finished dinner, leftovers, nothing special. She told me she had yoga. Same as usual. She changed into those dark navy leggings and that oversized zip-up hoodie she always wore. But when she leaned in to kiss my cheek goodbye, I caught it, something different. She smelled like tequila. Faint, but there. Not sweat. Not gym air. Tequila. "Your class serving sh*TS now?" I joked. Tried to keep it light. She laughed, quick and high-pitched. "Oh, stop. I grabbed drinks with Amber before class. But Brooke hated working out after drinking. Said it made her dizzy. Said it gave her cramps. That night she came back 2 hours later than usual, claiming she'd gotten caught up chatting with the girls after. She was flushed, energized, smiling in a way that didn't quite include me. I told myself not to overthink it. The next week, she changed her phone password. Now, I know people value privacy. I get that. But we'd always known each other's codes. Not because we snooped, but because it never mattered. We shared everything. So when I noticed her locking her screen more, flipping the phone face down when it buzzed, I asked about it. She said her job was cracking down on security policies. Something about protecting confidential client info. She worked in wellness coaching, not the Pentagon, but I nodded anyway. After that, the secrets piled up faster. She started buying new clothes out of nowhere, stuff I'd never seen before. Tight, sleek outfits that looked less like me time at yoga and more like see me at the bar. When I asked about the charges, she brushed it off. Said she used her bonus. Said I never noticed when she dressed up before, so why did it matter now? I didn't answer. Truth was, I had noticed. I noticed every change. Every little piece of her drifting further away from me. Weekends became mine alone. Where we used to run errands together, make pancakes, or just crash on the couch for a movie, suddenly she had other plans. Always last minute. Always friends from college or networking meetups I couldn't join. Her explanations were quick and practiced, like she'd gone over them in her head before I even asked. One Saturday, she said she was visiting a friend in Bend for the weekend. Her friend, Leah, who lived out there, supposedly needed help planning a baby shower. I offered to come with, said we could make a mini getaway out of it. She shut it down fast. "Jason, I need girl time." That's not a crime. No, it wasn't. But what was a crime, or at least should have been, was how she came back the next night smelling like she'd showered in someone else's cologne. It wasn't just a passing scent either, it lingered in the sheets, in her suitcase, on the cardigan she left crumpled on the entryway bench. I picked it up and almost dropped it again. The smell was too familiar. Not familiar to me personally, but the kind of familiar you know is meant to attract. The kind that never came from our laundry basket. I didn't ask her about it. Not that night. Instead, I lay awake next to her, my eyes open, her back turned to me, and I waited for the feeling to pass. It didn't. The final straw, at least, the moment I stopped pretending, came 2 months before I left. She started taking calls on the balcony. Now, our condo had this tiny little outdoor space, not really a balcony, more like a stoop with a railing. In winter, it was freezing cold out there. But Brooke suddenly loved standing out there after dark, bundled in a blanket with her laptop propped on a stool, having client sessions. Sometimes she laughed. Sometimes she whispered. Once, I brought her a cup of tea without knocking. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, I just wanted to be sweet. She jumped when I slid the glass door open. Slammed her laptop shut like she'd been caught Googling something shameful. You scared me, she snapped. Jesus, can you knock? I didn't think I needed to knock on my own patio, I said, keeping my tone even. It's just. I'm in work mode, Jason. You wouldn't get it. She went inside and didn't touch the tea. A few days later, she left her email open on the iPad we shared. Not intentionally, she'd been reading something, must have forgotten to log out. I wasn't trying to pry. But when I picked up the device to check the weather, a new message popped up. From someone named L. The preview read, still thinking about Sunday. You in next weekend? I stared at the screen, not moving. The message disappeared a second later when the device locked itself again. I just stood there, holding it like maybe if I waited long enough, the truth would go away. But it didn't. Later that night, she came home and hugged me tighter than usual. I thought for a second maybe things were turning around, that maybe I'd just been reading too much into things. But when I hugged her back, she felt far away. Like someone standing in front of you behind glass. My gut screamed at me every day after that. Every late-night shower. Every missed call. Every time she got defensive over nothing. I started writing down things she said, timelines, trips, small contradictions. I wasn't trying to build a case. I just needed to convince myself I wasn't crazy. Because that's the thing about being cheated on, the betrayal is one part. But the real poison is in how it makes you question your own mind. Makes you wonder if you're paranoid, insecure, or just too damaged to trust. But I wasn't imagining it. I knew her. I knew the way she carried herself when she was in love, when she was present. And I knew this woman wasn't that. So I waited. I waited for the confirmation I hoped would never come. And when it finally did, when that name popped up on her phone again and I saw something that couldn't be explained away, I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just walked upstairs, sat in the dark of our bedroom and admitted to myself that Brooke was no longer mine. It happened on a Wednesday morning. One of those mornings where nothing seems out of place until everything is. I've forgotten my access badge for work, of all things. It was rare. I usually kept it clipped to the inside of my laptop bag, but that day, for whatever reason, I'd left it on the kitchen counter. I was already halfway to the office when I realized it, so I turned around and headed back home. Annoyed. Flustered. Thinking more about the meetings I was about to miss than anything else. But when I walked through the door, it wasn't silence that greeted me. It was her phone buzzing on the table. Now, that in itself wasn't strange. Phones buzz. People text. But something about the way it vibrated continuously, once, then again, caught my attention. It was like someone was urgently trying to reach her. She wasn't home. She'd already left for her conference. Said it was a 2-day event out of town, some networking retreat for wellness professionals up in Leavenworth. She'd kissed me goodbye that morning, hair curled, makeup done, suitcase by the door. Told me not to wait up. I'll be in seminars all day, she said. Might not be able to text much. But here was her phone, lighting up with messages from a contact saved under a name I'd never seen before, Landon. And the message at the top? Miss you already. Last weekend was perfect. Let's do it again, just us this time. I stared at the screen. The message didn't hide behind euphemisms or emojis. It wasn't casual or vague. It was an asterisk, mate. Familiar. It carried weight. The kind of words you send when the secret's already out between two people and the only person still in the dark is the one footing the mortgage. I didn't touch the phone. Didn't open anything. Just stood there in the doorway of my own kitchen looking at the device like it was a live grenade. Then I did what most betrayed spouses probably do. I went looking for more. I opened her laptop. It was still logged in. She must have been in a rush this morning because her email tab was wide open, too. I clicked. I shouldn't have. But I did. It wasn't hard to find. A thread of emails with Landon R. The same name from the phone. Our weekend plans. I clicked. And there it was. Full conversations. No hiding. Mentions of hotels, excuses she gave me, things she told him about our relationship, some of it true, most of it twisted. She told him we were drifting, that I was married to my job, and that being with him made her feel like herself again. I don't know how long I stood there reading. Maybe 5 minutes. Maybe 50. Time stopped being something I could feel in a normal way. My hands started shaking at some point. My breathing turned shallow. I felt hot, then cold. Then nothing. There were photos too. She'd sent him one from a cabin. I recognized it. The place in Walla Walla I'd booked for our anniversary 2 years ago. She'd gone back with him. The *T was from the patio. I remembered the railing, the way the vines curled up around the posts. My stomach turned. And then came the lie that broke everything. She hadn't gone to any conference. I checked her travel history. No hotel booked in Leavenworth. No conference registration. Not even a gas charge on her card. But there was a ride-share trip yesterday afternoon from our house to an apartment in downtown Spokane. Landon's name was on the trip receipt. That was it. The moment. The line in the sand between doubt and certainty. Between suspicion and reality. That was when the ground under my feet gave out and I realized I'd been trying to balance on a marriage that didn't exist anymore. I didn't scream. Didn't throw things? That's not who I am. My anger comes quieter than that. It arrives like cold steel, slow, calculated, precise. I packed a bag. Not hers. Mine. I packed it without knowing exactly where I'd go. Just knew I couldn't stay. Not now. Not knowing that every smile, every kiss, every I love you over the past few months had been built on top of a second life. One I hadn't been invited into. I left the house for a few hours to think. Drove around aimlessly. Listened to a podcast without hearing a single word. Ate a sandwich I don't remember ordering. And when I came back, I went straight to the safe and pulled out a thumb drive I kept there. Backup copies of all our financial records. Bank statements. Insurance policies. Mortgage docs. I didn't know what the next step would be, but I knew I'd need those. I didn't sleep that night. Brooke texted around 11 p.m. Made it safe. Long day. Hope you're getting some rest. Miss you. I stared at that message for a long time. It was so casual. So normal. So her, or at least the version of her I'd known before everything cracked. I almost wanted to believe it. To pretend none of what I'd read was real. But then I remembered the emails. The hotel photos. The gas receipts that weren't there. And I didn't respond. The next morning I called out of work. Told my boss I wasn't feeling well. That wasn't a lie. I felt like someone had scooped my insides out and left the shell behind. I spent most of that day emailing myself copies of the emails I'd found. *ting messages. Making a list of everything I needed to separate: finances, accounts, legal stuff. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. I called her. She didn't answer. I waited an hour. Called again. This time she picked up. Jason? Her voice sounded far away. Cautious. Like she'd been expecting the call and wasn't sure which version of me would be on the other end. I didn't waste time. Where are you? She hesitated. Still at the conference. I said nothing. Babe, she asked. You okay? You're not at a conference, I said. Calm. Cold. Silence. I saw the messages, Brooke. I saw the emails. You're with him. Landon. Aren't you? She didn't answer. For 5 long seconds, there was only the sound of her breath catching in her throat. Finally, she whispered, Jason. I hung up. I didn't want to hear it. Didn't want to give her the space to explain how she didn't mean for it to happen or how it wasn't serious. I knew what I saw. I knew the version of the truth she'd been crafting was over. That was the last time I called her. When she came home 2 days later, I wasn't there. I left her a note. Just one line. You weren't alone in the house. But now I am. Permanently. There's this myth people believe about leaving, that it happens in one big moment. One fight. One betrayal. One slammed door. That you pack a suitcase in a fit of rage, tearfully yell, I'm done, and vanish into the night. But that's not how it went for me. For me, leaving happened quietly. It started with a single drawer. The one in the hallway where we kept old phone chargers and envelopes full of takeout menus. I took my passport from there. Slipped it into a manila folder along with my birth certificate and social security card. That was the first step. The second was visiting the bank. I opened a new checking account. The banker was polite, made small talk, asked if I wanted to sign up for a credit card. I told him no. Just the account. I didn't tell him why. Didn't explain that I was preparing to remove myself from a life that had been built, brick by brick, on shared promises. After that, it was like dominoes. Once you start moving, it's easier to keep going. I found an apartment in Spokane Valley. Small. 1 bedroom. Nothing fancy. But it had hardwood floors and a balcony that overlooked a quiet courtyard. I signed the lease under a different email, paid the deposit in full, and picked up the keys without Brooke ever knowing I was even considering leaving. I didn't move in right away. I staged it in phases, left a few boxes there each day after work. Some clothes, an extra pair of shoes, my old record collection she never cared for. It was like reverse moving, unbuilding a life one piece at a time, like brushing away sand from a footprint. Then came the ring. My wedding band had always felt more like a part of me than an accessory. I'd worn it so long that the skin beneath was slightly lighter, like it had hidden from the sun. But I took it off that Wednesday night after work and placed it on the kitchen counter beside a photo from our honeymoon, Brooke and me on a beach in Tulum, holding coconuts and laughing like idiots. Her head was tilted against mine, our cheeks sunburned, I squinting into a future we both thought we'd arrive at together. I stood there staring at that photo longer than I care to admit. There's this thing people don't talk about. When the person who hurt you is also the person who knew you best, it doesn't just feel like betrayal, it feels like erasure. Like your entire shared history is suddenly suspect. Did she ever love me? Were all the good memories real, or just placeholders before the real plan began? The silence in the house that night was unbearable. Every creak of the floorboards sounded louder. Every hum of the fridge felt intrusive. I couldn't sleep, so I sat on the couch with the lights off, watching the sun rise over the neighborhood that had once felt like home. By morning, I'd made my final decision. I packed the last of my things, just the essentials. Left behind furniture, artwork, even some clothes. I didn't want to take anything that would require me to interact with her later. No excuses to call. No leverage for her to use. I left it clean. Before I walked out, I wrote one final note. Not dramatic. Not emotional. Just honest. Brooke, I know everything. I'm not angry anymore. Just done. Please respect that. There's nothing left to discuss. Then I placed the note on the kitchen table next to the ring and the photo and closed the door behind me. No slam. No goodbye. Just the click of a lock and the sound of my feet on the porch steps. I drove straight to the new apartment. The drive should have felt liberating. Instead, it felt hollow. My entire life fit into the back seat of a used Toyota and 3 plastic bins in the trunk. Funny how you can accumulate a decade's worth of shared memories and still leave without a U-Haul. The apartment smelled like new carpet and paint. It echoed with every footstep. I sat on the floor for a while, just staring out at the courtyard, trying to convince myself this wasn't a dream I'd eventually wake from. I ordered pizza, unpacked a few clothes, and hung my coats in the closet like it was any other normal day. And in some ways, it was. Normal in the sense that I wasn't screaming. Wasn't crying. Just existing. Breathing. Moving forward. Brooke didn't call that day. Not that I expected her to. She'd returned from her fake conference the day before. Probably found the note, saw the missing clothes, and realized she'd miscalculated. I imagined her sitting in the kitchen, staring at the ring like it was a riddle she couldn't solve. She'd always assumed I'd fight. That I'd yell or beg or demand answers. But I didn't give her that. Silence was the only closure I needed. The next few days were a blur of logistics. I updated my mailing address, notified HR at work, and called the lawyer a friend had recommended months ago, back when I first started suspecting the truth. She was calm, efficient, and asked 0 unnecessary questions. I told her I had digital proof and she asked me to forward it. No need to rush the filing, she said. Let's make sure it's airtight. Meanwhile, I built a new routine. Woke up early. Went for runs around the complex. Cooked simple meals. Read books I hadn't touched in years. There's something strange about freedom when it arrives through pain. It tastes bittersweet, like water after a long drought. You're grateful but also cautious. Afraid the well might dry up again. One morning, about a week after I left, I passed a bakery on my way to work and stopped in. Bought a croissant just because. The cashier smiled and asked if I wanted anything else. I said no. Paid in cash. Walked out. It wasn't a big moment, but it felt like one. Because for the first time in months, maybe years, I did something purely for myself, without asking permission or thinking how Brooke might feel. It was small, but it was mine. That night, I walked around the apartment barefoot, music playing from my phone, the windows open. The air was cool, crisp, clean. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was hiding from anything. I was rebuilding. Quietly. And with every minute that passed, I was less and less afraid of what came next. She noticed I was gone by the next morning. Maybe it took a few hours to sink in, but it didn't take long. I could feel it begin like a distant rumble in the ground, subtle at first, but growing fast. Brooke had lost control of the narrative, and panic was the only language she had left. It started with the texts. The first one hit my phone at 9:13 a.m. Jason, please, just talk to me. I don't understand what's happening. Where are you? Then another 3 minutes later. If this is about Landon, it's not what you think. I read them both, set my phone down, and didn't reply. By noon, she had messaged me 7 times. The tone changed slightly with each one, first confusion, then guilt, then anger. The final text that day just said, "You're being unfair. Unfair." That word hit me harder than the rest. As if walking away from the life she'd already detonated made me the villain. As if I'd wronged her by refusing to stay on the sinking ship she'd secretly set on fire. I turned my phone off. The next day, the calls started. Private number. Over and over. I never answered. She left voicemails, at first whispering like I was someone she still had a chance with. "Jason, I'm sorry. I messed up. Please just let me explain. Don't do this. We can fix it." Then, when I didn't respond, the tone hardened. "I deserve a chance to talk. You owe me that." But I didn't owe her anything. Not anymore. She hadn't just lied. She'd made a choice. Over and over, night after night, text after text, hotel after hotel. And now she was reaping the silence she'd sown. By Friday, it escalated again. My mom texted me mid-morning, "Hey honey, Brooke's been trying to reach you. Says she's worried. Everything okay?" I stared at the screen, debating whether to call her back or let the lie spread like a weed. I ended up texting, "Don't worry, Mom. I'm fine. Just needed space. Please don't respond to her." But Brooke didn't stop with my mom. She reached out to Pete, my old roommate and best man at our wedding. Then Ellie, a friend we hadn't spoken to in over a year. She even messaged a former co-worker of mine on LinkedIn, told him there was a family emergency and she couldn't get a hold of me. I could only imagine the frantic look in her eyes while she typed those messages, trying to find the thread that would lead her back to me. But it was gone. I'd made sure of that. A week later, I checked my mail and found a thick envelope. No return address, just my name in handwriting I recognized instantly. Brooks? I held it for a while before opening it, debating whether to toss it. But curiosity, or maybe some masochistic part of me, got the better of me. I sat at the kitchen table, slit the envelope with a butter knife, and unfolded the letter. It was 4 pages long. Handwritten. No emails. No texts. Just ink and paper. Like she thought pouring her guilt onto physical pages might make it more real, more human. She started by apologizing. Said she never meant to hurt me. That she hadn't been in love with Landon, that it was emotional, complicated. That she felt invisible in our marriage. That she was confused, lonely, and vulnerable. A greatest hits album of excuses. But the part that stuck with me came near the end. "I never expected you to leave like that. I thought we'd fight. I thought you'd yell. I thought you'd cry. But the silence, it was worse. You just disappeared. Like I never existed." There it was. The thing she feared the most, becoming irrelevant. For Brooke, being erased was a deeper wound than being hated. She'd always needed to be seen, needed someone orbiting around her. But now she was floating out in space, and I wasn't sending up a rescue flare. Attached to the letter were 2 more documents, the divorce papers signed and a proposed settlement. Generous, surprisingly. She offered to forfeit her share of the condo, to split the savings account 60-40 in my favor, and to take nothing from my retirement. It wasn't guilt. It was surrender. I passed it all on to my lawyer without replying. Told her to proceed exactly as offered. A week went by. Then another. And still, Brooke persisted. One night, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Don't punish her forever, man. We all make mistakes." No name. Just that one sentence. A few minutes later, another came in. "She's broken over this. Give her a chance to explain. She loves you." Blocked. I didn't need advice from strangers hiding behind burner numbers. If Brooke had people trying to intervene for her, it only proved she still hadn't learned that consequences don't get negotiated through middlemen. I wanted peace. Not apologies. Not letters. Not late-night justifications typed out in desperation. I'd chosen silence, not to punish, but to protect myself. That's what she never understood. For months, maybe longer, she'd been building an escape route from our life, brick by brick, secret by secret. She wanted freedom. Thrill. The spark of something forbidden. Well, she got it. But she never planned for the fallout. She expected me to break. To rage. To crumble. But I didn't. I just disappeared into a quiet life, into solitude, into a version of myself I hadn't seen in years. One who didn't have to decode her moods or question every late arrival. One who didn't wake up wondering if her phone had been wiped clean of the truth again. Some days I still expected her to show up. I imagined her outside my building, rehearsing lines in the mirror before knocking. I imagined her standing on the sidewalk, clutching that same photo of us from Tulum, waiting for me to open the door. But she never came. She stayed in the periphery like a ghost trying to find form. And me? I was already on my way out of the haunted house. People talk about closure like it's a conversation. Like it comes with a satisfying ending, a bout string, a door gently closing behind you. But closure is a choice. Sometimes it comes not from understanding why, but from realizing why doesn't matter anymore. Brooke had made her choice. And I'd finally made mine. 3 months after the silence, I found a small envelope in my mailbox. No return address, just my name written in soft, rounded letters. Inside was a single-page letter from Brooke. She didn't beg this time. She didn't spin a story. She admitted it all, the affair, the deception, the loneliness she never spoke about until it became an excuse. At the bottom were signed divorce papers and a note that said, "I'm letting go now." I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just stood there in the hallway, read it once, and slid it into a folder marked Final. That night, I slept through till morning. 9 months later, I'm living in Portland. I teach basic carpentry at a local vocational school and volunteer at a youth rehab center on weekends. My place is small but mine. I drink mint tea in the mornings, read novels I missed in college, and build things with my hands, bookshelves, tables, peace. I think of Brooke sometimes, but not with pain. More like a character from an old chapter. Our house is gone, our story ended, and that's okay. Because what I have now is honest. Simple. Quiet. And most of all, mine.